nobody can compare it. It's clean in place and show, you know, New York is special, you know, New York is different, and there's no place else on earth quite like New York. 'Cause it's so exciting. And there's no place like it.
Thank you all for coming out. Another nice big turnout. I'm Jim Charon. I'm the chair of the Central New York Regional Committee of the New York Cannabis Growers Processors Association. And we're gonna
Hold the mic.
Sorry, we're going to have a lot of information for you guys tonight. So, to start out with, we want to thank Joe Rossi and Nick Agrippino for coming last meeting, and providing us with the information that they gave us. There we go. Hey.
How's that? Much better?
Okay. And as I was saying, thank you to Joe Rossi and Nick Agrippino for coming last meeting. And on our next slide, we're going to have the information on the different regions that are in the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors that we're going to be using. Now for our current news, we've got a new board of directors, Brittany Carbone. She was just recently appointed as one of the new members to the board. And as of yesterday, we have a new Veterans Committee that was just started by Sarah Stenoff. She's the owner of Anadanda Farms at Fulton. And so if any veterans are here and you're interested in becoming a member of the committee and learning more information, please hit us up or put your information on the sign-up sheet. The big news that just came out is the governor signed regulations so that this way hemp farmers that are currently in good standing and have been growing for 2 of the past 4 years will be able to start growing if they're approved to grow cannabis starting April 1st. So they're already taking and getting move on so that this way we have product available come December, January, because they're looking at getting sales going. And this is going to be in addition to the help that they're going to be getting from the medical dispensaries. They're going to be also supplying the recreational market. And then one of the most recent bills is a bill put out by Assemblywoman People-Stokes, and that's putting out information on protecting the investments of distributors. So it's setting up how payments are going to be made between retailers and distributors. Either it's going to be cash on delivery or if they make a payment agreement. But they're making specific regulations so just for that. Anybody have any questions or anything? For growing? They're looking at April 1st. Well, this is just going to be just for the cultivation of cannabis. They are probably going to put a provision in there where they'll be able to take and do something with sales or distribution themselves. As far as retail part, they haven't gotten to that part yet. That's what we're waiting for, seeing how we're going to get there.
Good question. When you did the hemp program, you had to buy the seeds from somebody. Can you use legacy seeds for that April grow? Also, as far as from what I read, it looks like you can't even process it. You kind of like put us in the same situation as they did with the hemp, where you just like sit on it.
That part I haven't seen yet. It looks like they, because they're only giving you so much square foot and so much, portion to grow. Being an existing hemp farm, they're probably still going to want you to keep growing as a hemp farmer, because then you're really going to be a distressed hemp farmer. They're going to let you keep growing. Seed-wise, from what I heard in one of the meetings, is they're going to most likely use the Immaculate Conception concept. Until everything gets put into place.
Where do you submit your questions to?
I'm sorry?
Where do you submit your questions to?
For
Or is it question due Friday?
for the
That's regarding the Social Equity Investment Fund.
Right, so if I wanted to submit a question, where would I?
Right
Okay.
on the DASNY website.
Okay.
You're welcome. Yeah, so that leads into events.
Hey guys, it's Christine here. I just wanted to talk about some events coming up this month, or the next couple months, I suppose. The questions submitted regarding the Social Equity Investment Fund. This is through DASNY. So they have opened a request for information regarding how this should be structured. So if you have any questions regarding this fund, they would like those submitted through the website. There's an email, I believe, they direct you to submit to. So questions would be due by this Friday, the 4th. And then the RFI is extended through Wednesday, the 16th of the month. So again, just go straight to that DASNY website. It's pretty easy to find in their bid section, and it just gives you very clear, very lengthy instructions on how to submit these questions or information. So next up, we have a couple opt-out or opt votings happening in villages of Fayetteville and Manoa on March 15th. So anyone who is a resident of those villages, we encourage you to go and vote, please. And I would like to invite one of our new CNY committee members, our friend Mike Golden from the Higher Calling, to talk about his event coming up on 4/20.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm with the Higher Calling. Right now we are a lifestyle brand that's been working on destigmatizing cannabis. We had the Stop the Stigma rally last year. And again, we're holding this 420 Fest that it won't be a full-out farmer's market. It's going to be more of a celebration of cannabis and how it brings people together and intertwines into so much different music, arts, and culture, and celebrate the culture together. I wanted to also elaborate on some of the things that I've been working on as a member of the Social Equity Committee as well. We've been working on our white paper and submitting recommendations to the board for social equity applicants for the distributions of the funds, everything from how the tax money is utilized to even utilizing a stable coin for transactions between retailers and wholesalers and everything like that. So, and traveling the state and working with the committee, I'm looking to speak to everyone and get different opinions on how they feel like funds should be distributed, or how they feel like the vetting process should be going, as we're going to be working on that. Also working with Binghamton University, Finger Lakes Community College, as well as Boston University on some incubator and accelerator projects. So be on the lookout for a lot of exciting news on that. But yeah, April 20th is coming up around the corner. You know, it's a big day for all of us stoners, if you will. So, come out. We are still accepting vendors and sponsors and everything for the event. But come out, have some good food, food trucks, bands, everything like that. And look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you, Mike.
That light is hot.
On our next slide, we have a helpful resource for members and individuals here interested in the industry. This was shared to us by some other new committee members to our CNY committee, our friends with Lakeside Cannabis. So we have Paul here, who can give you a little more overview on this resource and sort of tell you what he's been up to in the industry.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Paul Suits. My brother Matt over here, you can kind of. We are from Cortland, New York. We are trying to apply for an adult use dispensary. I'm very excited to work with Christine, Jim, and Mike here to help build out the NYCGPA, and more specifically the CNY region here and the ecosystem that we can build out and make truly successful. This link here and there is a couple of resources out there. If you open it up, and I believe we'll share it afterwards too, you'll be able to filter in all of the municipalities in the entire state, whether they've opted in, opted out, or if they're still up for referendum. There's a lot of detailed information in there if you wanted to look at your particular municipality, etc. But just trying to share a lot of resources that everyone can open up and use at home for their own benefit here.
Awesome, thank you, Paul and Matt. Glad to have you here. And I will just share that that is the resource I learned that those votes were happening through. So I was able to see those ballot icons clear as day, and they had the date listed. It looks like this particular map is created and updated by Mike Doyle. So credit goes out to him, and he's made this available for public use. So we can send that link out. But that's all the updates we have for you. Does anyone have any upcoming events or news that they would like to share with the group? Alrighty then. I think we're going to switch over now and invite up our expert for the evening, Kent Doctor. He comes from Regan Companies and is a commercial line risk manager there. We're just going to switch over real quick.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kent Doctor. I'm a commercial risk manager at Regan Companies. We have some product literature up at the table. Everybody feel free to take that. But what it does is it kind of outlines what you have to expect from in your insurance program. You will, for those of you who are new to entrepreneurship, it's going to be something that's a requirement. So as I said, feel free to take one. And I want to also introduce Josh Amadon. He's my partner in this cannabis business unit, and that's what we're going to focus on. We'd be happy to take any questions at this time. Anything to say, Joe?
My biggest thing would just be to, with New York State, try to get everything in order about 3 months ahead of time. You don't want to wait until you're ready to get everything set up to start worrying about your insurance, because the carriers are just like the state. They take time, especially the new industry, to get everything quoted up and underwritten. So just try to think ahead with that. Yeah, so with the state, you're obviously going to need your basic business insurance. That's your general liability, your auto, your property, your product liability. And the biggest thing is, especially if you're working with standard carriers, just check any exclusions and endorsements, because insurance is unique where they'll say you have coverage in one part, and then there's an exclusion 5 pages later. So just look through that
And you can certainly see that, certainly for people who have who are using growing CBD or processing CBD right now, is you would want to make sure that you don't have cannabis specifically excluded later on in your policy. That would be a big thing to check for. And it's also what you're going to need is going to change depending on the license that you have as well. Obviously, if you have a distribution network, you're going to need an auto policy. But if you are a retail operation, you may need one, you may not. It all depends on how your business is set up. Go ahead.
I have a question. If you are I'm a caterer, but I'm also a chef, and I want to switch over and infuse my food. So how would I?
So the question is, if you have a restaurant and then you want to actually switch over and do an infusion restaurant kind of deal, is that what I'm saying?
It's just I've only been 2 years, maybe so far, so I'm still at the startup stage. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting what I need for the infusion process prior to full kickoff.
Yeah, Yeah, for sure. You would definitely want to check that. Once again, you'd have to look at those exclusions, and I can guarantee you it's going to be excluded at this point. You will need a program specifically set up for cannabis. That's for sure. I would certainly encourage you to take a card, and we could actually go in depth on this, but you can't just expect to have your normal business insurance just transfer over and then cover your cannabis exposure as well. You would definitely have to get an add-on, for sure. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So the flyer says that regardless of where the business falls within the cannabis vertical, that you may need some of these things. So I kind of have a two-part question. If it wasn't necessarily selling or distributing, but it was just like a consumption site, does that fall in the vertical as well, even though I wouldn't be selling or distributing or growing?
A consumption site you would be selling.
Yeah, you're still gonna need some of those lines of coverage for that site, especially general liability. Somebody comes to your site, and you're the one that's controlling the site, then it's your responsibility. So somebody was to come there, they slip and fall, especially in New York State, they're gonna see that commercial with the attorney telling you to sue, and then you're gonna be on the hook for that.
Okay, and then it would be all of these lines?
That particular instance would be general liability. We just want to list them all out there. It's going to vary from business to business which lines of coverage you're going to need.
You are going to want a insurance program that's set up specifically for your operation, for sure. For example, like we have workers' comp listed as well, but if you're a sole proprietorship, you wouldn't require that. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much. If you do have any questions, our cards are back there. Call us at any time as everything is changing weekly now. So if you do have any questions, please let us know.
Yeah, we're going to be present at most of, if not all of these meetings, so come with your insurance questions every single time and we'll answer them. Oh, go ahead.
So I was going to ask, service y'all provide is y'all only help with insurancing and finding out how to get an insurance policy that will work for your business, or do you also do consultations on the process of getting licenses and everything else that?
We focus on the insurance portion of this and risk management portion of it. There are other people in place that would certainly be able to help you more with that licensing. We would want to make sure that any insurance program we set up does follow that licensing goal.
Yeah, so what we provide is not only the insurance, but then also any safety manuals, hiring practices. Because the last thing you want to do is not follow the guidelines, and especially when it comes to employment practices. If you ever fire anybody, they're not going to think it's their fault. So if you're not following strict guidelines, then they can come back and sue you for a list of reasons. So you need to, that's another service that we do provide when we do provide the insurance is different steps to make sure that you are protected so that those lawsuits don't come back on you.
Yeah, the goal is to protect your business. I don't need this thing. That's what we want to make sure that's in place when we set your insurance program up, is to make sure that if something happens that you have coverage and it's not going to risk you losing your business over that infraction.
Do you only cover businesses, or do you cover like individual events?
We could do
we currently don't have an individual event policies, but you can put those on your business insurance. But that is something that we can talk to the carriers about, because obviously that is something that they're going to have to be ready for. We do have counterparts in Massachusetts who have gone through a lot of these things, so that's a great question. It's something we should bring up to them.
If we were your broker, we would certainly make sure that we had that availability to you. We would find something to help protect you.
Did you guys cover crop insurance as well? If someone were to lose like a crop or mold or scenarios like that?
Certainly.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be under your property policy most likely.
Now you bring up a specific instance such as mold. Once again, you have to look at the exclusions. I'll tell you, mold is most likely going to be excluded in many, many different policies. But something like if you were to lose a crop due to a building failure, structure failure, we can make sure that that's covered.
Yes.
Oh, product liability?
Yeah, and so that's actually where we started 2 years ago, was in agriculture. We both grew up on farms, so 2 years ago, we started the ag department here at Reagan Companies, and then this was a natural addition to that.
So for product liability, we want to make sure that if you had an establishment and you sold something and that injured someone later on, you would want to make sure that you had coverage for that. And once again, it's very, very particular in the exclusions. I was just talking about this today. There's short-term injury and long-term injury, and you want to make sure you have the best coverage that fits what you need and your risk profile. So, for example, what we were talking about earlier was cigarettes, I believe, and it's like you might have a cancer exclusion long-term, but if there's something that immediately injured someone who's using your product, that would be covered. If it's something that goes out months or years, you might not have that coverage. It all depends on that script that's written in your policy.
So for delivery service, what will that fall under? Like, would you need separate auto?
No, the auto would be in your package, in that, so you could combine, you'd have a combination of those different lines of insurance coverage.
Okay.
Auto would be one, you're still going to need general liability in that case, most likely property. All right, well, thank you all for your time. I do appreciate it. Like I said, anytime you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to be a resource for this group.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for us? Now, anybody here and people here, how many of you are going to be going for growing? How many of you are already growing? So you're looking at taking the provisional? Keep close attention to my page, the Cannabis Growers page, Association page, because as the information comes out, and same thing, my suggestion is always signing up in New York State. Sign up with the Office of Cannabis Management. This way, as soon as they take and send something out, you get the information, you'll get the email.
Do you have a card?
For myself?
Yeah.
I have.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I got cards.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions? Any info?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, go ahead.
This might be information soon to come, but with the micro business licensing, seed to sale, can the operation be set up in disparate locations, or does it all have to be under the same roof at the end of the day?
It's a good question.
And as an add-on, not to cut you off, with the retail side of it, are there going to be a number of retail dispensary and on-site consumption licenses that are going to come with the micro business license? Well, go ahead, yeah, that's
Okay, so first question, does a micro business, so cultivation, retail, does that all have to happen under one roof? I would say at least the cultivation and processing would need to happen in the same location.
cultivation and processing?
Yeah, at least that. It could very well be that a retail needs to be on the same site too. The reason I say that is because the cultivator processor license, those specifically say in the law right now that those are going to need to be on the same location.
Okay.
So I would be very surprised if that was different for a micro business. What we don't know right now is the retail side of things.
So one would deduce that we would only get one retail outlet with a micro business license?
With a micro business, you're only going to have that one location with that one retail out of that location.
Really?
Yes.
I guess we don't. I don't know if we know that for sure, but
It's a big ass.
yeah.
It's going to be a cap. It's going to be a
Could be. The micro business. the micro business license is very broadly written right now. I mean, as far as, there's a lot of details to come for that. So, yeah, so, you know, I don't think that that's an unreasonable potential assumption that it could all happen, because I think it's kind of, you know, like a microbrewery. That's sort of what it's.
3 or 4 or 5 taprooms within their microbrewery. They can spread out. They have one in Buffalo, one in Manhattan, one in Syracuse that doesn't have their farm brewery.
Right. Yeah, but there's going to be some kind of square footage cap. So, you know, we don't even know what that square footage cap of canopy space is going to be. You know, we've heard rumors of 5,000 square feet. So, you know, if say it's a 5,000 square foot canopy space, it doesn't really make much sense to split that up into different locations if all you got to work with is 5,000.
My question is the retail. I'll grow in the same place, but maybe I want 3 storefronts.
Yeah, but the same goes for that. You know, say you're capped at 5,000 square feet. How much product are you going to be able to really produce to be 3 different retail locations?
And not only that, as a micro business, you're actually going to be distributing your own product to other retailers. So you won't think of it as you're going to have your own retail at that location, but then you can take and
I can wholesale to other retailers.
Wholesale to other locations, to other retailers.
Yep.
Yep.
Micro businesses
That's
can
the
sell-
whole. That's the whole thing about think of it as a micro business as being vertically grown. One is what a micro business is pretty much doing, but you're also going to be able to sell to other retailers, or you can sell to a distributor for them to do.
You can definitely wholesale, that's for sure. Yep. Yep. And then that kind of, just one thing I wanted to bring up, I can't remember who asked the question, but it was related to an on-site consumption lounge and insurance and things like that. Now, we don't know this for sure either, but I guess I would foresee it as, you know, an on-site consumption lounge is going to actually be taking control of that product, okay? So you're not just providing a safe space, right? So you're actually going to be getting product from dispensaries and selling that to your customers. So that's why you would, for instance, need insurance to cover the sales of that thing. You're not just providing the space, you're actually selling that product too.
So you're implying it would be beneficial to get a micro growing license so that I don't have to buy someone else's product? I can just grow my own and sell it on my site? Basically.
A micro.
Anyway, you still need product liability insurance.
Right.
I think it's well, either way, you're still going to need insurance.
Well, now you're talking about 2 different license types, right? Now you're talking about an on-site consumption license, and an on-site consumption licensee cannot have an interest in another license. So, yeah. But again, that's another license that we're waiting on a lot of the nitty-gritty details for sure. Yep.
Go ahead. When can we expect the actual regulations to be available up to the farmers applying for the professional licensing?
Are they opening up?
We're still waiting, what, another week? We're still waiting, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be soon.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole goal of this was so that we're not missing the grow season that's starting in May.
Plus, they got to work out the social mentoring program that goes along with being part of that, which is, you know, not only qualifying as being growing for 2 out of 4 years and being in good standing, but they also have to have a uniform program, which the association is also working on providing to the state and figuring out if something is going to be going on, because we need it to be uniform.
Say you get the provisional license, but you are seeking to do a micro business, will that stop one or the other?
The way they're saying here is
it's good through like
the license will be good through June 1st of 2023. And then, I mean, if you're going to change or if you're going to continue, you can probably have more clarity on that.
Yep.
Could you possibly have like a micro grow license and could you have like a micro grow license and a delivery license? Because say you have a micro grow license.
You can deliver as a micro grow. You can't have a separate license. You can only have one license.
So how can you sell like your product to?
Because you're gonna be all one business. Have you ever been to Middle Ages Brewery or a microbrewery?
Yes.
So that's, think of that concept.
Okay.
You're growing it, you're making it, you're selling your own stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same thing as if you have a retail dispensary license,
Yeah.
you can do delivery. You don't need to apply for a delivery license. You get
Oh,
to,
okay.
you get to do that under your license.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I was asking.
Good.
This might be a silly question. Knowing that we're waiting on a cap for micro license is there anything that we think that would prohibit different types of growing from happening in the same facility? For example, a certain percent of your canopy being hydro, a certain percent being indoor, potentially adjacent greenhouses, and you have multiple grow styles happening on. It was your choice as the farm.
I haven't seen any language that would prevent that. No.
And it looks like that's what they're doing with the provisional, is giving you greenhouse and
outdoor.
outdoor at the
That's a good
same
point.
time.
Yeah.
Because where we live, you're gonna have, which they prefer the outdoor for the more sustainable options, but yes, you're gonna have both options available.
I wouldn't think that they would touch that or limit you. I think that'd be more of a business decision if you want to do all that type of
There
stuff.
is, I heard about the lights that you could use, right? You can only have 20 lights per 20,000 square foot, right? And so, and if you did greenhouse and outside, you'd be limited to only 30,000 square foot, right? Is that what the association kind of put forth?
Yes.
And traditional, sorry,
Yeah, that's what the wording is, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it does change up, you know, what we would be doing per se.
But that's only for the provision.
But remember, that's just for the provisional portion.
Right.
We don't know what the final is actually going to be.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Are we going to be referring to it as the cannabis business or the marijuana business or the weed business? Has that been clarified?
Well, from my experience and my training that I've gone through, as we prefer cannabis because of the social feedback from marijuana. Okay, because that was the other thing, and weed is more of a slang thing, so industry-wise, they prefer cannabis.
Cannabis is the technical term. Scientific term. Scientific term. Cannabis is, that's why they don't know that.
So thinking of a micro business being limited to one location, but there also being delivery services that are available, you can get a delivery license. Are those delivery licenses going to be able to store product off-site at a different part in the state for delivery?
I don't know.
We don't know if they've gotten that part yet, so where if you have like a separate location for your delivery
Yes.
operations.
Off-site, or even like the third party has a site in Albany that it can deliver there, a site in Buffalo that can deliver there. So you give them your products to deliver out.
Well, that would be because you're only going to have delivery out of the micro business location.
Okay.
If you chose somewhere else, then you'd have to have a different license, and you can only have one license.
Yep. And just to make sure, to answer your question and to make sure there's no confusion, if you're a micro business, you can only sell your own products. So you're only going to be able to deliver your own products too. So, you know, you just mentioned like another location. So I didn't know if like you were thinking in your mind, like buying it from someone else and then selling their products.
Well, I know that there are services that are being built where as a third party, they don't grow, they don't process, they take product from one spot to another.
Those would be your distributors.
You would not be able to utilize those services, only your own delivery process?
No, if you're a micro business license, you'll be able to outsource that if you want to. Yeah. Yep. But
how does the licensing affect the medical aspect? I'm a medical car owner. I
mean, I would hope that wouldn't
Yeah,
prohibit
I don't
you
think that's
from
gonna prevent anything.
homegrown,
Yeah.
you know? I'd be pretty upset if they did something to prevent that.
That'd be
But-
more of an incentive is.
Exactly, you know, that's what I was kind of thinking, so I mean, I can still do my business thing as well as do my personal thing, as far as you understand?
Yeah, as long as you make sure you're keeping it separate and stuff. Yeah.
Hi, I apologize, I just got here, there might have been some questions I asked already that I haven't
You're fine.
heard to, but when are licenses going to be available, how much will they cost, and can you break that down as to, I'm sure a store is going to be a different price than a growing and what the delivery services do.
Yeah, well, first question, conditional licenses are going to be available this summer.
This summer?
Yeah, for whatever. Other license types, we don't know when they're going to be available. Why don't you grab one of my cards after this, and I have a good webinar that you can watch that goes over all the different license types and a lot of what we know right now of the law.
That would be great. The growing season starts in the spring. If we're applying for a license,
The only people that are going to be able to apply this summer to grow are folks who have been growing hemp. 2 of the last 4.
right, no, I get that. It's just, will I be able to start my grow before the licenses are available?
Technically, you should not start your grow until you have a license.
And then this summer, not this spring.
Yeah, technically you should not be growing if you're not licensed. I don't think a lot of people are following that rule, but yeah. Go ahead. How many per? No, New York State's still working that out. I know that there's been talks of like, just to give you an idea of dispensary locations, I think they're targeting around 800 to 1,000, somewhere in there. But it really depends, like, you know, like you could say 20 grow license, okay? Well, that would need to be a lot of square feet. So, you know, kind of the hope is that there'll be some kind of clear guidance, like on tiers, you know, how many grow licenses can grow over 100,000 square feet? How many 20,000 square feet grow licenses are going to be? But New York State's still working that out, trying to figure out the demand of, you know, population and things like that.
Have you heard different options of cannabis management coordinating with New York State ag markets to get them to change some wording in their laws as far as accepting cannabis as an acceptable agricultural product?
I believe that the NYCGPA is working on getting cannabis listed as an agricultural product.
Yeah, I know that's one of the things that the association is also trying to work on as well.
Yeah. The association, I think it's like 6 or 7 goals, the bullet points of like main, you know, goals. And I believe that is one of those top priorities. You bet there.
How many social equity licenses can you get in our region for citizenship?
Don't know that either. Not yet. You know, I know that the goal of social equity licenses is 50% of all licenses issued. That's the goal of the OCM, but that's just 50% of licenses. I don't know what that means as far as like percentage of cultivator licenses, percentage. So hopefully the OCM, you know, defines that a lot in the regulations and kind of sets out those expectations too. But as far as social equity applicants, 50% is the goal.
So, and one of the laws, I think, with the cultivation, they stated that you can only do 20 lights, but you can go like an exception to that through New York State. How are we going to make that exception? You can go out there and use more than 20 lights.
Are we talking the conditional license? Is that where that 20 light?
Yeah, that's the provisional license that they're working with, yeah.
It could be greenhouse with assisted lights, 20 lights. I would say it's just for this temporary provisional period, until we get a temporary possibly engage program to micro facilities and then back out to some
the goal of the conditional license, you know, is to make sure that we're staying on that timetable of end of 2020, early 2023 for retail dispensaries. Because I think New York State finally figured out and got it through their head that if people don't start growing this summer, we're talking about pushing it out another year, potentially into late 2023, if that didn't happen. Yep.
You gotta figure though that the language of the conditional license is gonna have to be close to a medical license. I mean, I know they got a lot to figure out.
A little bit, but not necessarily. I mean, for instance, you know, the conditional license is only really greenhouses and outdoor, you know? So they're gonna definitely allow indoor grows to happen. Yeah, so yes, could we get some hints of like how the final license is gonna be? Definitely. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see the regulations around like greenhouses and outdoor, you know? Yeah. I think more like what kind of, you know, the previous question got brought up where, you know, that smaller scale, like capping at 20 lights and things like that, that's not going to be the end goal type thing. This is just to get things going right now so that folks can get the industry moving.
They want to make sure we have product when they start the program, because they don't want to be like the other states that started the program and then had no product.
But they also want to be able to control it.
That's basically what they're doing. They're pushing, like I feel like the growers should get their licenses first, ASAP. Because if not, like if they're passing on in the summertime, we get 2-3 months of a good sun. You know what I mean? So it's going to push everything back to, like you said, late 2023. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a tough situation for the growers.
Yep.
And it's crazy how they regulate how many lights you can have. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird too.
Yeah, I think the lights thing was more that they wanted to target greenhouses and outdoor first.
Yeah.
Personally. I think also because, you know, the current ROs and stuff, you know, most of them are all indoor already. So, you know, a lot of your outdoor biomass and stuff, that's what's going to go into a lot of your edible products and things like that. So I think that's also part of the reason probably they're sort of thinking, okay, the ROs have indoor and stuff, so we need greenhouse and outdoor grows. But I guess, I don't know every detail that went into that decision.
Well, they're already regulating how much square feet you can have, so like, you know what I mean? With the lights also, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think probably definitely a reason for that, why they would do that too, is they want to make sure, you know, they're not setting it up for someone to come and monopolize the whole industry too. You know, you got to put some kind of cap on it, otherwise what's preventing these MSOs from coming over and doing these huge outdoor grows, you know? So it's kind of a catch-22, you know, I get what you're saying, but, you know, you got to be careful, because you could have a negative impact on something else.
Yeah.
You're right.
The fact that you're giving us the head start here is much appreciated, but I want to know how dedicated New York is to having New York growers grow their marijuana, as opposed to like, if we can get our licenses maybe in June, maybe in August, we don't know yet. Will they go to growers in Washington and Oregon, California, et cetera? I mean, how dedicated are you to New York growers?
Well, I'm not a New York politician, just, yeah, so not me, but New York, yeah. But, I mean, I think that New York did a good job laying out, you know, kind of the groundwork in the MRTA and kind of the goals. You know, the goals of the law right now say that it's pretty small and medium business friendly. So whether they stick to that in the regulations and, you know, make sure it's not these huge multi-state operators that are coming and taking over the industry, I guess. I'm hoping for that.
He's talking about they're going to allow you to buy from Washington, Oregon.
Well, you can't do that. Yeah, it's federally illegal. You can't cross state lines. Yeah, you can't even cross from Massachusetts to New York, legal to legal. That's federally illegal to cross state lines. Yeah.
Is there any discussion around processing and managing waste from the cannabis industry as far as trim or after you process something for concentrate?
not too much as far as the regulations go for that. That's not yet, no.
But NYCGPA does have a sustainability committee, so I mean, that can always be discussed amongst them. Yeah, and that would be something they would be pushing for.
Any other questions?
And so it doesn't really matter, they don't really care, you don't have restrictions on where cultivators can get their seeds grown and everything?
I think Jim mentioned it earlier. In a lot of states, what they do is, it's called the Immaculate Conception Rule. Usually for the first year.
Because you got to get everybody, you know, operating and processing and manufacturing. And
It's a, we're not going to ask you where you got it if you don't say anything.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Yep.
So when someone does it, like grows 1 year and has a section where they do seeds, are they gonna be allowed for it to grow the next year with the track, when they install like the tracking and stuff like that? You know, a lot of states have it where it's like seed to sale, where you can file the plan, and, you know, I know what like CPE, and they actually had to show where we got the seeds from and all. I didn't know if we could actually, if we had it from the previous year, if we could just say, oh yeah, we got it from there, or if that would be good enough.
Right. I mean, most, like you said, kind of most of that stuff will probably be implemented later on, you know? Yeah, 2 years down the line, then they might be asking more questions like where you got your seeds from and things like that. Yep. But,
I heard something about how much is going to be taxed is going to be based off the THC level. I don't know if that's true.
Yep, so there's two levels of tax. There's one that's THC-based tax. I'm a tax accountant myself, so we are trying, I do not want that tax. It's overly complex. All it does is hurt the smaller people. So I know the NYCGPA is trying to push for just, you know, raising up the retail tax, because there's also two pieces. You have the one getting collected from the distributor and that, and it's silly, hard to calculate. It's extra administrative work that's going to hurt a lot of smaller businesses. I know the NYCGPA has been moving to, you know, either A, make it just a retail only tax that's higher, or B, move to something that's easier to calculate, like a weight-based tax.
like a flat wholesale tax.
Yep.
Sorry, what was the other tax besides THC based?
So there's two taxes. There's one that's based on the THC and it differs based on the product. And then there's also the 13% tax at retail. Just like your, you know, like your 8% sales tax is just 13%. Yep.
Follow up, I guess. So that 13% is on top of, say, whatever your county's sales tax is?
No, sorry. So 13%. So no 8% plus the 13%.
So, okay.
It's 8%. Yep. Or 13%. Yep. Yep.
I don't know if you can answer this, but is there a specific tax on alcohol, like would, you know, beer be taxed at a lower rate than Everclear because of the percentage?
That's exactly where they got it from.
Okay.
And it makes sense for alcohol, but it doesn't make sense for cannabis.
So yes,
You know, because alcohol is, it's an equation, right? You drink so much alcohol, you get so drunk. That's not how it works with cannabis. You know, it depends on the type of product, it depends on the person. But that's exactly where New York State got that idea from.
So what if someone like, if they were processing, their product comes out to 85%, is that going to be taxed 85% because that's what THC rate is? Because it's like distillate or?
It depends on the product. So like flour, I think is 0.5.
It's pretty much the strength, the THC level of the product, so the flour's the lower, and then when they get to the edibles and concentrates, they're going to be higher because they're higher strength.
Yeah, it's like how many milligrams of THC are in there, you know? And then it differs. There's a different rate. I can't remember them off the top of my head. There's a different rate for flour There's a different rate for
Concentrates,
concentrate.
8%, flowers, 3 cents per milligram, edibles are 3 cents per milligram.
Yep. Yeah.
The 13% tax rate is 9% goes to the state, 4% goes to the county and local government.
Yep. When you're talking about, you know, for like edibles and concentrates and stuff, that it leads to a really high effective tax rate. You know, it depends on the type of products again, you know, like, but if you have a very high potency vapor cartridge, you know, the effective tax rate, once you've got that THC tax plus what's at retail, you're talking almost a 35% effective tax rate in comparison to the wholesale cost of that. You know, okay, well, Massachusetts has a 20% retail tax rate. So how are, you know, dispensaries selling vape cartridges in Albany supposed to compete with Massachusetts? You know, flower is pretty, again, flower, and it's so hard to compare because flower, there's different THC levels in different flower that you're talking about too. You know, if you're talking about like, you know, 20 to 25% flower, that's probably pretty in line with that 20% tax in Massachusetts. But if you get up into the 30s, now you could be talking that, you know, you're competing with lower tax states right nearby too.
So they said, don't grow no good cannabis. Grow your own.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Have a video about that.
Any other questions? Yep.
What happened if someone formed a business in like Maryland and then opened up and operated in New York for like lower tax? They would still be based off of, they would pay based off of the THC regardless of where they formed the entity?
It's going to be based on where you're doing business, not where you formed an entity. Yep. Anything else?
So, I don't know, how can we help push this along in the agenda? I mean, you said that's you know, it's a choice, it's not due, it's 13% and the, you know, tax per THC or whatever. You know, how can we help push this along?
All right. So
That'd be,
How can we help
contacting your assembly and
directions where they don't do the whole?
Do you know where the Action Center?
I got
yeah,
it.
then if you go to the Action Center on the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors website, there's the Action Center, you can go there also and submit information. But pretty much they've already taken and submitted their information to the state. We're just hoping that they get it done before the budget, because that's when it has to be done, is during the budget, when they do the budget come out.
Nick earlier, Nick had mentioned the NYCGPA has 6 goals. This is found on their Action Center, so I just wanted to read these off. So adding your voice to the conversation to support the following: New York cultivators first, reducing the tax burden from 280E, removing the prohibition on processors, removal of the THC-based excise tax, ensuring a level playing field in the marketplace, and defining cannabis as an agricultural crop. So this is still up on their website. You can fill out the form and submit it. Like we said, I don't know, how much has been submitted at this point, but I don't see that it could hurt.
Yeah, this is how you do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think there's like button clicks too, where you click something and it's kind of a standardized email to who it's supposed to go, who we're yelling at.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, once you enter in your address, it'll pick up your respective representatives and send the whole template to them.
And they'll send it out automatically.
Yeah. Are growers going to be taxed? Because that's kind of, they're taxed, then they send it to the dispensaries and stuff, they're getting taxed. So actually, it'd be like a double tax.
Yep. It's a compounding tax, that's exactly right. Yep, and it's the distributor that ultimately pays the tax. So, for instance, you might have a cultivator and processor that might be outsourcing distribution, but, when it's distributed from, when it's distributed to an on-site consumption or a retail dispensary, that's when the tax accrues. In the event of a micro business where you're vertically integrated, then both the THC-based tax and the retail-based tax accrue at the time of sale, in the case of a micro business. Good.
There's most likely not going to be a shortage of private capital flowing through once everything gets going. Has there been any discussion, or is there any like Central New York Pact venture capital fund or angel fund that's coming together to kind of keep local money flowing into local startups?
Yep. I mean, specifically for social equity applicants, they announced a $200 million fund that's really geared toward retail outlets.
That's the state money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be.
Is it partially public, private?
I think that one's just public, right? What's that?
The 250 is all state money.
All state, yeah. Yeah. And then there's some other talk, and that's just for retail locations. So there's other talks of, money down the pipeline that New York State's gonna, they really haven't announced the programs yet, but for cultivators and things too. So what they're gonna be doing is, these existing ROs and, these other big operators that wanna get involved in the adult use, their licensing fees are gonna be very high, and that's how they're gonna fund a lot of these things in this program.
Well, I mean, there's, in terms of seeking seed capital, startup capital, right, there's going to be an influx of newly, hopefully licensed startups looking for capital. So I'm just wondering if there's, from the money side, a way to try to seek capital that's coming from our area versus elsewhere, and not just chasing the dollar, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard of anything that New York State is kind of set up per se that's like
Well, the only thing is that 200 million is what they're looking at, and they were looking at doing that as a loan so that this way it's going back into the kitty to refund the kitty.
I mean, it does seem like any community could take that on, though, right? Like, we could potentially seek out the kind of folks in our community who do capital campaigning and ask them.
The only restriction being you can't accept money from anyone else who theoretically would have a license.
Now, is that like a trustee decision maker or anybody with any passive investment?
Any passive investment.
So if you're a shareholder in any licensed cannabis company, that's it. You're one and done no matter what the licensing structure?
That's our understanding as of now, yeah.
Yep.
Now, what's obviously, if you have an IPO or something, I mean, if you have public stocks, I mean, is that, you literally, people, if they have a $5 share in your company, that they're done investing in cannabis?
You're not doing that, though, probably.
No, you need regulation capital, we do still run the IPO.
Yeah, there's public companies right now. MedMen's a public company, Tilray, they're. Yeah. But to your question, I don't know about if you have $1,000 of MedMen stock, does that preclude you from getting a New York license?
Right.
I don't know the answer to that right now. Hopefully that'll be hashed out in the ranks. If you're such a, yeah, if it's a publicly traded stock and something like that, maybe not, but I don't know. Hopefully that they'll, set some kind of, standard of maybe you have to own so much of a company or something like that. Not just be a super minority interest. But
sure.
But it's written very vaguely right now. In the MRTA it says cannot have a direct or indirect interest in any other license.
That's kind of cool feed right now because they're like, they have to put all their chips in one place.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. And I don't know how more broad you can get than saying direct or indirect. Yeah.
Will I be able to grow for myself and for another person who holds the license on my property?
You'd have to separate them because you'd have to, when you take in, put in your plans to the state, you'd have to separate the two different businesses.
Are you saying for like home grow, like for your
Or-
I would have a grow for myself.
Personal home grow?
No, for my business.
Business, yeah, yeah.
And this other person would rent another part of my property.
Isn't there something in the?
See, that's where you could get into what we were just talking about, the direct or indirect.
But that's, I think they have that in there specifically that you can't even rent. If you have a business, you can't rent property to another cannabis business, or it's,
It's basically, that could be considered, so you have a cannabis business, and then you're a landlord and you're renting to another cannabis business. That could be considered that you now have an interest in their license, because you're renting property to them. If they go under, you lose a renter, you know? So that could be considered having an interest in their business, even though you're not an owner, you know? So that's you know, that's one of those things where it's, even the slightest relationship like that could cause issues with only being able to have interest in one license.
So I couldn't lease my property to another grower.
I don't think we know for sure yet, but as it's written right now, I would tentatively say no. But things like that will be hashed out when the regulations come out. You know, when the proposed all-encompassing regulations come out, which are expected in May.
What if like two companies merge after with like two separate places, and then would they be able to grow on two separate plants, or would there only be one that they excited?
Yeah. Well, first off, any merger would need to be approved by the Cannabis Control Board, for sure. And so, let's step back too, for cultivators. So you can cultivate in more than one location, but if you're doing processing, that cultivation and processing has to happen on the same. So that suggests that if a cultivator wants to cultivate in two separate locations, they also need to have the ability to process on those two separate locations too. So to answer your question, if two companies merged, there's nothing that suggests that you can't have two separate cultivation properties. But yeah. But
I think that's what Mike on the spot, but he had mentioned something about a conversation around accelerators, incubators, that type of stuff, and co-located facilities. Is that within the micro business licensing construct? That seems like a logical way to go for some startups, right? With the sharing facilities, real estate, equipment, etc. Is there something? Is there something nurturing that right now, or is that kind of like up to the micro business licensees to get together and start having that conversation?
As far as like shared facilities and things go?
Well, I heard it earlier that there's a discussion around incubator, accelerator type infrastructure. So is that more of an academic setting type thing, or are we talking like a tech park for growers? I mean,
I think, I don't know, Mike, do you want to, you heard of a bike?
I know the Office of Cannabis Management specifically had brought that up before on some of their town hall meetings. They didn't have a lot of information on it. It was a program they were looking to kind of establish and grow. But outside of the few comments I've heard from the Office of Cannabis Management, I haven't heard a lot on it.
thanks, sir.
So like I personally could own real estate, and then my LLC could own real estate. When it comes to the licensing for this, like can I personally have a micro license, and then my LLC have a distribution or delivery license? Because it's not really me, it's the LLC.
No. Yeah. It was a good try.
Give you the Rossi spokes. Rossi says that.
What's that? Spouses? That seems pretty direct to me. You know, if spouses get one spouse could own one license, one spouse own another one. It seems pretty direct to me. I would be very surprised if they allowed that to happen. You know, kind of going back, what's that?
You saying no?
I would say that that would be a pretty direct interest if your spouse has another license. You know, I mean, again, kind of like this got brought up earlier, where it's like, you know, think of what that would set up. You know, people being able to take advantage of it. You know, now anyone could go get a cultivate process, and then their spouse could go get a distribution license, and now they're vertically integrated. You know, so what did you really prevent by writing the law the way that it's meant to be? Whereas we're trying to separate out these verticals. So yeah, it might ruin your plans, but you know that's kind of what's stopping, you know, these bigger companies from taking over the entire market. The fact that not everyone can be vertically integrated and stuff. You know.
What about the unions?
Go ahead.
Unions. Is there going to be? Do you think there's going to be implications when the unions get involved for the labor involving agriculture or something along those lines? Because you can't expect them all to be out there harvesting each one of their own crops by themselves.
Yeah, yeah. There's even for companies that are of a certain size, it's called the effective union mandate. You have to have a plan in place when you're applying. I'm not a subject matter expert on that by any means, but so yeah, unions will have some involvement.
For your application, you do need a labor peace agreement. That doesn't mean you have to be in the union, but you have to have an agreement with them. And then once you hit, I believe it's 25 employees, that's when you'll be mandated in some manner to bring the union into your organization.
Does the association have agreements already with labor entities in the state?
I don't think so.
And we don't have any arrangements yet. I mean, we've worked with, we've had discussions with others, and they've participated with in some of our meetings, from what I'm aware of that they had, but nothing specific. I think there's actually only one union that they have right now anyway, right? I think it is that I think there's just one union that they're working with right now in New York State that's established, which is already working with the medical organizations. And I know they've had a discussion a couple of weeks ago on one of the webinars also related to doing the agreements, labor agreements, and what's needed, and name of the organization. I'll get more information on that one for our next meeting.
If someone was to apply for their cultivation license, if they got denied from it, would they kind of hinder if they were to apply for like a dispensary or distribution or processing?
That I don't know, but I would think, I guess I would ask the question, why was your first one denied, type thing. That would be probably, but if you're going for like a lower tier, you know what I mean? Like if you're, you know, you get denied a cultivator license, but then you're going for this, you know, something that is less rigorous regulations and things like that. Yeah, I guess that'd be my question. I don't know, you know, why the application was denied. Maybe there just wasn't enough licenses available for that specific category, otherwise you would have been accepted. Then, you know, I don't think that would prohibit you, but, you know, I'm guessing, so.
Is there any certifications that they came across that you might need for like health or safety or whatever for like how restaurants have to get food inspections or whatever?
I mean, like for cultivator processors, I don't think is it GMP? Do you have to have that as a cultivator?
Well, I know they were talking about having either a GAP, a GAP, or a GMP because of processing, the handling and processing of the plants. So I know there was some type of wording that they were looking at in there. They haven't clarified that part yet either.
I'm sure there'll be some type of safety regulations that you're gonna have to.
Because like right now, most growers are using the GAP process. So they would either keep using that or go to the GMP process.
But as far as like, you know, like say a retail dispensary, you know, I don't know if there's gonna be any certifications that you need with that, you know. I guess what I would tell you too is anything helps too. You know, if you can have some type of certification, that's another thing you can put on your application, you know.
I have a CBD store and my employees after 6 months are required to get their certifications. And it's a cannabis certification, not just a CBD certification, since I plan on becoming a dispensary, because you want to make sure your staff are educated, they know what's going on. And let me tell you, we're going to have fun finding employees. And that's going to be one of the other big things right now. The Department of Labor is also working on getting a program set up so this way they can start establishing or start getting a workforce ready for us.
Syracuse University had a program that
they got their webinar, their online program starts next week.
Their online program is absolute garbage, I'm just gonna say that. I paid for it the first month or the first session, and they don't even have like they're just pre-made videos, of course, made by the Gunshare company. And then outside of that, there's like, for me, there was like the liaison for your assignments or whatever, was a lady who just had a nursing degree, nothing to do with cannabis at all. And the assignments were like, turn in your study notes or whatever. So I go to a school in Morrisville for horticulture and minor cannabis, and I will say though that we are out in like the administration there is looking for like places that are looking to hire interns or whatever to work on farms and stuff like that coming up.
It's good enough. Thanks for sharing that.
Syracuse.
Assuming Morrisville, it's in Morrisville, I guess, study.
Syracuse was also planning next year to roll out undergraduate classes
outside
outside
of
of
They get like community colleges has a program as well. I think Linda teaches a couple of them.
There is a program offered by the University of Utah, I believe, that's led by Bruce Buggy, which is one of the biggest cannabis names in the country. If you're looking for something that's more online.
I believe the University of Cornell in also has a couple online courses. One I know is like cannabis screening. I don't know if that includes like a catch-all for and 5% and also THC-related cannabis. But I also know they have the greener genetics one for small farms or growing, but I haven't checked out their courses but I know that you do, they're pretty serious, at least about their entry type courses or research.
I will say if you want hands-on though, Morrisville's, they've been doing it for like the last 3 years. They got acre farms and everything, and I'm already growing hemp. You can only grow hemp there, but that's all I'm saying. They have multiple cannabis, but of course even some solvent like courses like how to make like ice hash and stuff like that. So.
Very cool. Nice. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see.
I drive 2 hours a day every course, so I'm just kind of excited about it. So.
Yeah. No, you're fine. Yeah. No, hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more programs like this pop up. You know, I know a lot of colleges do like the 1 or 2 classes, you know, but now we're actually starting to see like minors being created and things like that. So it's great.
Are there any benefits other than like health benefits to versus growing organic and not organic? They did have any programs or anything set up as far as grants or incentives?
Like from the state, like as in what they want you to do?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have any details on that right now. I would kind of err on the side that I don't foresee New York telling you how to grow your product aside from making sure it doesn't have pesticides, heavy metals, and other nasty things in it. You know, I don't foresee New York State going further than that to making sure the product's safe, and then other than that, you grow it how you see fit type thing, you know?
I don't think there would be like an organic certificate you could use because of the CPA is federal compliant. The changes that we might see that, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
And what about storage? With mold and age, you know, potentially an acre of weight of my acre. So I expect to have like tons. You know, I really don't know what it is, but I'd like to keep it safe and no mold. Is there guidelines for that? I would see there is.
I mean, guidelines, no, but I mean, there's a lot of cultivators out there that can show you how to get mold out of your
Third-party testing that you have to do on genetics, you pass microbials, clean, third-party testing, that's standard now with that program, and I would imagine it's gonna be the same for this, so if you're in it, you're gonna have to submit your genetics to third-party testing, so you can pass it, and if it doesn't, then you're out. Sorry.
But as far as like best practices and stuff go, I mean, there's one thing I've learned about the cannabis industry is that people are not afraid to share knowledge with you a little bit and stuff. So, you know, go ask your cultivator, and I'm sure that they would be happy to tell you how to best store your product and prevent things like that from happening.
Someone with a popular like the processing license out there, would they need like a super critical CO2 extraction, or do they do just like rosin, have like rosin process plus rosin and certain processing?
Processing could be as simple as putting it in an 8-bag. That's considered, packaging is considered processing. So like you said, there's different levels of processing, you know, so, you know, yeah. Nope. So if you want to simply package flour, you know, you might need a processor license for that. You know, maybe they'll put some kind of exception in the law where, you know, that's all you're doing. Maybe you don't need a full-blown processing license, but just to say that processing, you know, because I think the same thing. You know, you think the full-blown extraction processing, but it's really anything after the flour is trimmed. Anything after that is processed.
So curing is processing?
Not curing, no. Trimmed, cured, and then what happens to it after that. Yep.
But curing is a huge process.
It is definitely a huge process. It's one of the most important processes. Anything else?
All right, now our next meeting is going to be April 6th, I think it is. It'll be the first Wednesday of the month also. If you have any, same here as of right now, it will be right here. And if you have any questions or anything you want to bring with you, if you have anything that you want us to take with us for our next meeting, anything you want us to research. If not,
Nobody can compare it. It's winning in place and show, you know. New York is special, you know.